"Sir, I'm looking for my mother," a little girl told a millionaire after walking 60 miles. Then something incredible happened. Let me know what you thought of this story by rating it from 0 to 10 in the comments, and tell me which city you're watching from. I really want to know if you enjoyed my story and get to know you better, so please subscribe to my channel to support my work. I'm counting on your help. The gas station on the highway between Aspen and Vale was nearly empty that Thursday afternoon, with only the constant hum of the beverage freezers breaking the silence of the quiet Colorado countryside. Arthur Sterling, 62, adjusted the collar of his dress shirt as he watched the fuel gauge on his silver Mercedes slowly climb. As usual, he checked his gold wristwatch. Just 15 minutes until his meeting with the construction firm's investors, and he loathed being late. It was then that a small, stumbling figure appeared at the station's entrance, immediately catching his attention. A girl of about 4, with bare, wounded feet, was clutching something to her chest as she walked with uncertain steps toward the cars. Her clothes were dirty and torn, and dried tears stained her small, thin face. "Sir," the child said in a weak voice, approaching Arthur cautiously, "I'm looking for my mother." The businessman was paralyzed for a few seconds, watching a scene that seemed to have emerged from a nightmare. The girl held out a faded, yellowed photograph, its edges worn from time and constant handling. "How did you get here?" he asked, crouching down to the child's level. "Where are your parents?" "I walked from Hope's Peak," she answered, out of breath. "Grandma Rose said my mom works in the big city where the rich people live. This is her in the picture." Arthur carefully took the photograph, and his heart nearly stopped. The image showed a young woman with brown hair and large eyes. Smiling at the camera, there was something about that face that deeply disturbed him, a familiarity he couldn't explain. "What's her name?" he asked, trying to keep his voice calm. "Eleanor," the girl said. "Eleanor Vance. She left me with Grandma when I was little, but she promised she'd come back." The name struck Arthur like a bolt of lightning. Eleanor Vance. His late wife's name was Eleanor, and her maiden name was Vance. But that was impossible. Eleanor had left 5 years ago after a terrible fight over the sale of her family's ranch. They never had children. "What's your name?" he managed to ask, still staring at the photo. "Lily," she replied. "Lily, with no last name, because Grandma said I don't have a daddy." The gas station attendant approached, concerned by the scene. "Sir, do you want me to call someone? This child looks lost." Arthur stood up slowly, still holding the photograph. He looked at Lily again, noticing how she trembled from cold and hunger. Her small feet were bruised and bleeding, and she had clearly walked a considerable distance. "Lily, are you hungry?" he asked, and she nodded timidly. He mentally cancelled the business meeting. Something about the situation prevented him from simply calling the authorities and leaving. Perhaps it was the unsettling familiarity of the photograph, or perhaps it was the way the girl had pronounced his wife's name. "I'll take you to get something to eat," he said, "and then we'll try to find your mother." Lily followed him to the car, still clutching the photo to her chest. As he drove toward downtown Aspen, Arthur couldn't stop thinking about the absurd coincidence of the names. Throughout the drive, the girl remained silent in the back seat, looking out the window with a distant, melancholic expression. When they arrived at a simple restaurant in the center of town, Lily ate voraciously, as if she hadn't seen food in days. Between bites, she shared fragments of her story, how she lived with her Grandma Rose on Hope's Peak, how she cared for other abandoned children, and how her grandmother had fallen gravely ill the previous week. "Grandma started getting delirious," Lily explained, her large eyes fixed on her plate. "She said my mom was waiting for me in the city of the rich, that I needed to find her before it was too late." "And you left there all by yourself?" Arthur asked, still shocked by the child's courage. "Yes. I walked all night and all day. A lot of people drove by, but nobody stopped to help me. Only you." After lunch, Arthur took Lily to the local police station, but something inside him resisted the idea of simply leaving her there. When the officer explained that the child would be sent to the county shelter until someone came to claim her, he offered to be temporarily responsible. "Mr. Sterling," the officer said, "are you sure? It's a huge responsibility to care for an abandoned child." "I'm sure," Arthur replied, surprising himself, "at least until we find out what happened to her mother." That night, in his mansion on the outskirts of Aspen, Arthur watched Lily sleep in the guest room. She still held the faded photograph, murmuring "Mommy" in her restless sleep. 3 days passed without anyone coming to claim the girl. During that time, Arthur hired a private investigator, Clara Jenkins, to try to uncover the truth about Eleanor Vance and her possible connection to his deceased wife. It was then that Clara brought a discovery that would change everything. Clara Jenkins's discovery came on a rainy Monday morning, as Arthur was still watching Lily eat her breakfast in silence. The girl had developed a habit of eating slowly, always looking out the window as if expecting to see someone familiar appear in the mansion's garden. "I found something disturbing," Clara said over the phone, her voice filled with urgency. "The social worker, Sarah Foster, gave me information that changes everything. Lily was found 2 years ago in an orphanage in Denver with no documents, just that photo and a note." Arthur felt his heart race. "What kind of note?" "Just a few words, 'Take care of her for me.' No signature, no date." The child appeared to be about 2 years old at the time, completely traumatized. She wouldn't speak, wouldn't answer questions, just cried and hid. As he talked, Arthur watched Lily bring the spoon to her mouth with mechanical movements. Over the past few days, he had noticed she ate without pleasure, as if it were merely a necessity for survival. At night, she would wake up screaming, calling for Mommy Ellie between desperate sobs. "There's more," Clara continued. "A woman named Eleanor Vance really did exist. She worked as a cook at a rural lodge near Denver until 2 years ago, when she mysteriously disappeared. The owners of the lodge, an elderly couple, said she was reserved but very affectionate, with a small child who always accompanied her." "Lily," Arthur murmured. "Exactly. But here's the strange part. Nobody knew where this Eleanor came from. She showed up one day looking for work, said she was a widow, and needed a place to stay with her daughter. She worked in exchange for room and board." After hanging up, Arthur sat next to Lily at the kitchen table. The girl had stopped eating and was watching the raindrops run down the glass. "Lily, do you remember where you lived before Grandma Rose's house?" She nodded slowly. "With Mommy Ellie in a house far away. There was a very pretty lady who made sweet bread and a man who let me help feed the chickens." "And why did you leave there?" Lily's face darkened, and she clutched the photograph to her chest. "Mommy got really scared. She would cry at night and always look out the window. One day, some men came and yelled ugly things. The next day, Mommy took me away." The connection was starting to make sense, but there were still missing pieces. Arthur decided to hire a child psychologist, Dr. Evelyn Reed, to help Lily with her constant nightmares and perhaps extract more information about her past. During the first session, Evelyn immediately noticed the girl's fragile emotional state. "She is deeply traumatized by abandonment," she explained to Arthur after the session. "The child has developed a defense mechanism where she emotionally detaches to avoid suffering. That's why she eats without pleasure and speaks so distantly about painful memories." How can I help her? Patience and consistency. She needs to feel that she won't be abandoned again, and perhaps through play therapy we can access blocked memories that might give us clues about her mother's whereabouts. That same afternoon, Clara called again with even more unsettling information. "Arthur, I need you to sit down. I found something out about the date of this Eleanor's disappearance." "What did you find?" "She disappeared at the exact same time your wife left Aspen, The dates match up with only a few days' difference. The silence on the other end of the line was prolonged. Arthur felt as if the floor were collapsing beneath his feet. That can't be a coincidence. It's not. I managed to get a photo of the Eleanor who worked at the lodge. When Clara arrived at the mansion an hour later, she brought with her a photograph that Arthur would never forget. It was his wife, not a look-alike, not a doppelganger. It was exactly Eleanor, his Eleanor, just with shorter hair and an expression of sadness he didn't remember seeing before. "My God," he murmured, holding the photo with trembling hands. But how? Why would she use a fake name? Why would she pretend to be someone else? Lily, who had been playing in the garden, ran inside when she saw the adults' commotion. Upon seeing the photo in Arthur's hands, her eyes filled with tears. "That's my mommy Ellie," she exclaimed, trying to grab the photograph. "Where is she? Do you know where she is?" Arthur knelt in front of the girl, feeling the weight of a revelation that would change everything. "Lily, I knew your mother. She was my wife." The child was confused, tilting her head. "Your wife? But she said she didn't have a husband." "It's complicated, my dear. Sometimes adults fight and separate." That night, after putting Lily to sleep, Arthur stayed awake trying to piece together the last days with his wife. He remembered the terrible fight about selling the ranch that had belonged to Eleanor's family for generations. He wanted to sell to a group of investors who planned to build a resort, but she was vehemently opposed, arguing that dozens of families of ranch hands would lose their homes. "All you think about is money," she had screamed. "Those people have lived there for decades. It's the only home they know." "It's just business, Eleanor. We can't support a loss-making property out of sentimentality." The argument escalated until she grabbed some clothes and left the house, saying she needed time to think. Those were the last moments they spent together. A week later, Arthur received a call informing him that she had been in a car accident. But by the time he got to the hospital, it was too late. But now, with Clara's evidence, everything looked different. Eleanor hadn't left out of pride or anger. She had assumed a false identity and gone to work at a rural lodge with a child she treated as her daughter. Why? The next day, Evelyn brought drawing materials for her session with Lily. "I want you to draw your favorite house," she said gently. Lily picked up the yellow crayon and began to draw with intense concentration. The result was a simple house, but with a detail that made Evelyn frown. A large, distinctive tree next to the building. "What kind of tree is that, Lily?" the psychologist asked. "The golden trumpet tree. Mommy Ellie said that when it bloomed, we would stay in that house forever. But it never bloomed." Evelyn showed the drawing to Arthur, and he felt as if he'd been punched in the gut. He recognized that tree. He recognized perfectly that century-old tree that stood next to the main house of the ranch he had sold 5 years ago. The ranch Eleanor loved so much, the ranch they had fought over, the ranch he had sold against her will, evicting dozens of families who depended on that land for their survival. Clara arrived at that moment with another discovery that would confirm his worst suspicions about what had really happened to his wife. The new owner of the ranch turned the place into something completely different from what you imagined, Clara said, handing Arthur a folder with documents. Helen Carter, 48, a retired social worker. She didn't build any resort. Arthur flipped through the papers with a confused expression. "What do you mean?" The ranch became an informal shelter for vulnerable women. Single mothers, women fleeing abusive relationships, people without documentation. Helen uses the place as a kind of safe haven. The irony of the situation hit Arthur like a slap in the face. Eleanor had fought with him precisely because she was worried about the families who would be evicted, and the final buyer had created exactly the kind of project his wife would have championed. "I need to go there," he said, standing up abruptly. "Maybe Helen knows something about Eleanor." "Arthur," Wait, there's something else you need to know about the sale of the ranch. Clara pulled a document from the folder that made the businessman turn pale, a forged deed. The lawyer who handled the sale, Marcus Thorne, manipulated the paperwork. The ranch wasn't entirely yours to sell. Part of the property legally belonged to Eleanor as an inheritance from her own family. That's impossible. Marcus has been my lawyer for 10 years. And for those 10 years, he's been planning this scam. I found out that he forged Eleanor's signature on the transfer documents and pocketed a considerable portion of the sale money. Arthur sat down again, processing the information. So Eleanor discovered the fraud? Apparently, yes, and Marcus must have threatened her to keep her quiet. At that moment, Lily appeared in the room, carrying a new drawing she had made during the morning. It was a female figure next to a small child, both with sad expressions, surrounded by dark, menacing figures. "What's this, my dear?" Arthur asked, crouching to her level. "It's the bad men who made Mommy Ellie cry," Lily explained with disturbing naturalness. "They always came in suits and yelled at her. Mommy was very scared when they showed up." Clara and Arthur exchanged significant looks. The description perfectly matched the profile of Marcus Thorne and his associates. "Lily, do you remember where this happened?" Clara asked gently. "At the house with the golden trumpet tree. Then they left and Mommy said we needed to get out of there fast." The connection was becoming clear. Eleanor had discovered the fraud, Marcus had threatened her, and she had fled with Lily to the lodge in Denver, assuming a false identity to protect herself. 2 hours later, Arthur was driving down the dirt road that led to his old ranch, accompanied by Clara. Lily had stayed with Evelyn for another therapy session, during which the psychologist hoped to extract more details about the bad men from the drawing. The property was unrecognizable. Where before there had only been the dilapidated main house and abandoned lands, now there was a small, organized community. Well-tended vegetable gardens, clotheslines with colorful clothes, children playing in the yard, and the sound of women's voices chatting animatedly. Helen Carter received them on the porch of the main house. She was a sturdy woman, with gray hair tied in a bun and kind but observant eyes. "Mr. Sterling," she said, recognizing him immediately. "I didn't expect to see you here. Is there a problem with the property?" "Actually, I'm looking for information about a woman who might have lived here, Eleanor Vance." Helen's face instantly darkened. "Come in. We'd better talk in private." The living room was decorated with functional simplicity. Old but clean sofas, a large wooden table where several women shared meals, and photographs of the residents and their children scattered on the walls. "Eleanor did live here," Helen confirmed, pouring coffee into mismatched cups. "A beautiful woman, but deeply haunted by something. She arrived with a small child, seeking refuge." "When was this?" "About 2 years ago. She said she was running from people who wanted to hurt her and the girl. She never went into details, but I could tell there was genuine fear there." Clara leaned forward. "How long did she stay here?" "Only a few months. She worked as a volunteer, helped with the children, cooked for everyone. Her daughter Lily was a sweet child, but very quiet. She always seemed on alert, as if expecting something bad to happen." "And why did she leave?" Arthur asked, a knot forming in his throat. Helen hesitated, looking out the window at the golden trumpet tree that still dominated the yard. "She received a letter. I've never seen a person so terrified by a piece of paper. She read it, turned pale, and the next morning she had disappeared." "Did she take Lily with her?" "No. And that was the strange thing. She left alone during the night, leaving the child asleep. When Lily woke up and realized her mother was gone, she had a terrible panic attack. She cried for 3 days straight." Arthur felt his heart break, imagining Lily, even smaller than now, being abandoned again by someone she loved. What happened to her after that? I took care of her for a few weeks, but I don't have the legal framework for adoption. I ended up having to take her to a lady I know, Rose, who lives on Hope's Peak. She takes care of several abandoned children. The letter, Clara interrupted. Did Eleanor leave any clue about who sent it? No. She burned everything in the fireplace before she left. But I remember the envelope had an elegant stamp, expensive paper. It wasn't ordinary mail. Helen took them to the room where Eleanor and Lily had lived. It was a small but cozy space, with 2 simple beds and a window overlooking the golden trumpet tree. On the wall, some crayon marks were still visible, childish drawings Lily had made. "Did she leave anything?" Arthur asked, looking at the faded drawings. "Only this," Helen said, pulling a small cloth doll from a drawer. "Lily forgot it when we left to take her to Rose. I always thought about returning it, but I never knew how to find them." Arthur held the doll carefully. It was worn from use, clearly much loved. He imagined Lily sleeping with it every night, finding comfort in the only object left from her life with Eleanor. "Helen, I need to ask you a difficult question," he said. "Do you believe Eleanor abandoned her daughter voluntarily?" The woman was silent for a long moment, looking out the window. "No. A mother doesn't abandon a child she loves the way Eleanor loved Lily. Whatever was in that letter forced her to make a desperate decision." On the way back, Arthur held the doll in his lap while Clara drove. "I need to talk to Marcus," he said finally. "He won't admit anything. Men like him are experts at covering their own tracks. Then we'll force him to expose himself." That night, while Lily slept clutching the doll Arthur had brought, which she recognized immediately with shouts of joy, he planned a confrontation that would change everything. But first, he needed more evidence. "Clara, I want you to look for Rose on Hope's Peak. I need to know exactly what she told Lily about her mother. And you? I'm going to pay a visit to Marcus Thorne's office. It's time to find out what really happened to my wife." What neither of them imagined was that Marcus already knew they were investigating and had prepared a trap that would put not only Arthur in danger, but little Lily as well. Marcus Thorne's office occupied the top floor of a commercial building in downtown Aspen, with large windows offering a panoramic view of the city. Arthur arrived unannounced, determined to confront the man who had betrayed his trust and possibly destroyed his family. The secretary, a nervous-looking young blonde woman, tried to stop him. "Mr. Sterling, Mr. Thorne is in a meeting." "I don't care," Arthur replied, pushing open the door to the main office. Marcus was alone, bent over documents scattered on the mahogany desk. Upon seeing Arthur, his face took on an expression of surprise that quickly turned into calculated caution. "Arthur, what a pleasant surprise. Please have a seat." "I'd rather stand. We have urgent matters to discuss." Marcus was a man of 55, with always perfectly coiffed grey hair, expensive suits, and a smile that never reached his eyes. For 10 years, Arthur had trusted him with all his important business, never suspecting he was being systematically robbed. "About the sale of the ranch," Arthur continued, "specifically about the irregularities in the documentation." "Irregularities? I don't know what you're talking about." Marcus maintained a professional tone, but his hands betrayed his nervousness as they drummed on the desk. "Eleanor's forged signature. The part of the inheritance that belonged to her, the money you embezzled." The silence that followed was tense. Marcus stood up slowly, walked to the window and watched the street traffic. "You're making very serious accusations, Arthur. I hope you have evidence to back them up." "I have enough evidence to put you in prison for the next 20 years. Marcus turned, and for the first time, Arthur saw a genuinely dangerous expression on his face. "Your wife was a very stubborn woman. She insisted on questioning transactions that were none of her business." "So you admit you spoke with her about this?" I had several conversations with Eleanor. I tried to explain that certain contractual simplifications were necessary to expedite the sale. She refused to understand. Arthur took a step toward the desk. And when she threatened to expose your fraud, you intimidated her. Intimidate is a very strong word. I simply clarified the consequences of interfering in legally complex business. What kind of consequences? Marcus sat down again, partially regaining his composure. Your wife had gotten involved, romantically, with complicated situations. A child that wasn't hers, forged documents to get a job. If she insisted on creating problems for me, I would be forced to report her for document fraud and kidnapping. The revelation hit Arthur like a punch. You threatened Eleanor with prison if she didn't keep quiet about your theft. I protected the interests of everyone involved, including yours. Liar! You destroyed my family for greed. At that moment, the office door opened and two men entered unceremoniously. They were large, simply dressed with expressions that made it clear they weren't there to talk. I believe our conversation has come to an end, Marcus said calmly. Mark and Paul will escort you out. You can't intimidate me like you did Eleanor, Arthur said, backing toward the door. I can and I will. And if you continue to investigate matters that don't concern you, the consequences will be much more severe than a few verbal threats. Meanwhile, on Hope's Peak, Clara climbed the steep, potholed streets in search of Rose's house. The neighborhood was a typical rundown area in the Colorado mountains. Unfinished brick houses, narrow alleys, children playing among old cars and stray dogs. Rose's house was at the end of a dead-end alley. It was small, painted a faded blue, with a tiny yard where a few chickens pecked among medicinal plants. Clara knocked on the door, and a woman of about 40 answered. I'm looking for Mrs. Rose, Clara said. She's very ill, barely leaves her bed. Are you a relative? I'm a private investigator. I need to talk to her about a child she cared for, Lily. The woman, who introduced herself as Nancy, Rose's daughter, led her to a small room at the back of the house. Rose was lying in an iron bed, visibly frail, but her eyes were still alert. Lily, the old woman murmured when she heard the name. My girl disappeared. I looked everywhere. She's safe, Clara reassured her. She's being cared for by a good man. But I need to know about her mother, Eleanor. Rose tried to sit up in bed, supported by her daughter. Eleanor was a haunted young woman. She showed up here 2 years ago, alone, crying a lot. Said she had lost her daughter and didn't know where to look. Lost how? She said she had to leave the girl in a safe place, but when she went back to get her, the child was gone. She searched for months, went to shelters, orphanages, until someone told her a girl matching Lily's description was with me. Clara's heart raced. Did Eleanor come to get Lily? She did, but when she saw the girl, she became desperate. Lily didn't remember her well, called her auntie instead of mommy. The separation had broken the bond. And what happened? Eleanor wanted to take the girl away, but Lily clung to me, crying. She didn't want to go with a stranger. It was the saddest day I've ever seen. A mother rejected by her own daughter because they had been apart for too long. Nancy added, Eleanor visited every weekend. She tried to rebuild the relationship slowly. She brought gifts, told stories, sang songs she said were special between them. When was the last time she came? About 2 months ago, Rose replied. She arrived very nervous, looking over her shoulder as if she were being followed. She said she might not be able to come back for a while, but that Lily should look for her in the city of the rich if something happened. And did she leave anything? Rose pointed to a shoebox under the bed. Some of Lily's clothes and a sealed letter. She told me to open it only if something bad happened to her. Clara picked up the letter with trembling hands. The envelope was sealed with red wax, and there was an inscription, for whoever cares for Lily with love. Can I take this? The girl is safe, but we need to understand what happened to Eleanor. Take it, Rose said. I just want to know if my girl is okay. She is. She misses you, but she is very much loved. On the way back to Aspen, Clara tried to call Arthur, but couldn't reach him. She decided to go directly to the mansion, where she found Evelyn playing with Lily in the garden. The psychologist seemed worried. Where's Arthur? Clara asked. He hasn't come back yet, and I'm worried about Lily. She had an anxiety attack an hour ago, started screaming that the bad men were coming to get her. At that moment, Clara's phone rang. It was an unknown number. Hello, Miss Jenkins. The voice was cold, professional. Your client has gotten himself into matters he shouldn't have. If you want to see him again, you'd better stop asking questions about Eleanor Vance. The call was disconnected, leaving Clara with a cold fear in her stomach. She looked at Lily, who was playing peacefully, unaware that her new family was being threatened by the same men who had destroyed her previous life. Eleanor's letter remained unopened in her hands, possibly containing the answers they all sought, but also potentially sealing the fate of everyone involved. Eleanor's letter trembled in Clara's hands as she tried to decide whether to open it immediately or wait for Arthur's return. Lily was in her room, finally asleep after the anxiety attack, and Evelyn remained in the living room, equally worried about the businessman's disappearance. It's 10 o'clock at night, the psychologist murmured, looking at the clock. He always calls when he's going to be late. The call I received leaves no doubt. Marcus has Arthur, Clara said, finally breaking the letter's seal. Maybe this letter will give us a clue on how to proceed. Eleanor's handwriting was delicate, but the words trembled slightly, as if written under great emotional pressure. If someone is reading this, it means something terrible has happened to me. Lily is the light of my life, even though she is not my biological daughter. I found her abandoned when I was working at the lodge. Just a baby left on the doorstep with a note saying her mother would be back. She never came back. I have cared for her for 2 years, as if she were my own blood. But Marcus Thorne discovered our situation and is using it to blackmail me. He forged documents in the sale of the ranch that belonged to my family and threatens to report me for kidnapping if I say anything. I can't lose Lily to the system. She has already suffered too much abandonment. That's why I accept the silence. But I know that one day Marcus will want to get rid of me completely. If that happens, please, protect my girl. She deserves a family that truly loves her. There is one person who can help. Beatrice Evans, a laundress in the fishing village on the Eagle River. She knows the whole truth about Lily's past and can prove that I didn't kidnap her. My husband Arthur never knew about Lily. We had a terrible fight about the ranch, and when I discovered Marcus's fraud, it was too late to explain. Arthur sees me as a selfish woman who abandoned her marriage out of pride. He doesn't know that I ran away to protect an innocent child. If he is reading this, I want him to know that I loved him until my last day. And if he can love Lily as I love her, she will have the best father she could ever wish for. With all my love, Eleanor. Evelyn wiped her eyes as she listened to Clara read the letter aloud. She really loved that child. And Arthur needs to know this, but first we have to get him out of Marcus's hands. At that moment, the phone rang again. Clara answered quickly, expecting instructions from the kidnappers. Miss Jenkins. The voice was different from before, younger, nervous. Who's speaking? My name is Paul. I work for Mr. Thorne. I heard his conversation today with your client and I didn't sign up for kidnapping. Clara became alert. Where is he? In a warehouse in the industrial zone. But listen, the boss is losing control. He talked about solving the problem permanently, like he did with the woman. What woman? The one named Eleanor. I was there when she received the letter at the shelter. It was the boss who sent it. Clara's blood ran cold. What was in the letter? A threat. He said that if she didn't disappear forever, he would report her for kidnapping, and Lily would be taken to a state orphanage. She would never see the girl again. And she obeyed. She left that same night, but the boss didn't trust that she would keep quiet. He sent some thugs to follow her. Clara closed her eyes, dreading the answer to the next question. What happened to Eleanor? I don't know the details. I just know she won't be bothering anyone anymore. The call was cut off, leaving Clara with the devastating certainty that Eleanor had been permanently silenced by Marcus. Now Arthur was running the same risk. I have to go to that warehouse, she said to Evelyn. Stay with Lily. If something happens to me, take her to Helen at the ranch. You can't go alone. Call the police. There's no time, and without concrete evidence, Marcus can claim that Arthur went to meet him voluntarily. Clara took her pistol from the car's glove compartment and drove toward the industrial zone of Aspen. The area was deserted at that hour, just empty warehouses and poorly lit streets. She located the address Paul had discreetly mentioned during the call, an abandoned warehouse at the end of Industry Street. The warehouse was dark, but a familiar car was parked in the back. Arthur's Mercedes. Clara parked a few blocks away and approached on foot, staying in the shadows of the neighboring buildings. Through a broken window, she could see Arthur tied to a chair in the center of the empty warehouse. Marcus was pacing around him, gesturing agitatedly. Two men, Mark and Paul, stood near the entrance. You should have accepted my version of the facts, Marcus was saying. Your wife had an accident. End of story. Murderer, Arthur murmured, his mouth bleeding. I didn't touch Eleanor. I just created circumstances that forced her to make desperate decisions. If she chose to disappear forever, that was her problem. Where is she? Marcus stopped pacing and faced Arthur directly. Somewhere she'll never bother anyone again, and you'll be joining her if you don't stop investigating matters that have already been resolved. Clara realized she needed to act quickly. Paul was clearly uncomfortable with the situation, looking nervously from side to side. Maybe she could use him as an ally. She circled the warehouse to a side entrance and managed to get in silently. Paul was a few feet from her, separated from Mark by a pile of empty boxes. Paul, she whispered, making him turn around, startled. What are you doing here? I came to get my client, and you said you didn't want to get involved in kidnapping. I don't. But if I leave now, Mr. Thorne will kill me too. Not if you leave with me. We have evidence of the fraud and the threats against Eleanor. You can testify against him. Paul hesitated, looking at Marcus, who continued to threaten Arthur. And what if he finds out I helped you? He's already lost control. Look at him. Do you think men like Marcus leave living witnesses? The truth of those words hit Paul like a ton of bricks. He knew too much about Marcus's illegal operations to live peacefully after this. What do you want me to do? Distract Mark. I'll try to get to Arthur. Paul nodded nervously and walked toward Mark. Hey man, I need to talk to you outside. It's about the payment. Mark followed him, complaining. Clara took the opportunity to approach Arthur, but Marcus noticed the movement. Well, the investigator decided to join the party, he said, pulling a pistol from his coat. Perfect. Now I can solve all my problems at once. The authorities know where I am, Clara lied. If anything happens to me, nobody knows where you are, and tomorrow they'll find you both, victims of a robbery gone wrong. At that moment, sirens began to wail in the distance. Paul had fulfilled his part of the deal and called the police before distracting Mark. Marcus's face contorted with rage. Damn it, Paul, you traitor! But it was too late. The sirens were approaching rapidly, and Marcus realized his life of crime had come to an end. In a final act of desperation, he pointed the gun at Arthur. If Lily was going to be an orphan again, He would make sure at least Arthur wouldn't be there to take care of her. Clara didn't hesitate. She shot first. Clara's shot hit Marcus's arm, causing him to drop the gun with a cry of pain. Seconds later, the police stormed the warehouse, arresting Mark and immobilizing the corrupt lawyer on the floor. Paul was outside, nervously talking to the investigators, providing details about years of crimes he had witnessed. "Are you okay?" Clara asked, cutting the ropes that bound Arthur to the chair. "Physically, yes," he replied, rubbing his bruised wrists. "But emotionally, I just found out my wife was murdered by a man I trusted for 10 years. In the days that followed, the police investigation revealed the extent of Marcus Thorne's crimes. In addition to the fraud in the ranch sale, he had embezzled money from numerous clients over the years, always using threats and intimidation to keep his victims silent. Paul became a protected witness, providing crucial details about the criminal activities. During his testimony, he revealed information that broke Arthur's heart. Eleanor had been forced to leave Lily at Helen's ranch in the dead of night, believing she would return in a few days when the situation calmed down. "She was crying a lot," Paul told the detective. "She said it was temporary, that she would come back for her daughter as soon as it was safe, but Mr. Thorne had already decided she knew too much." "What exactly happened to her?" the investigator asked. "She went to a boarding house in Vale, trying to hide, but the boss's men found her. There was an accident, on the road, during a storm." Arthur, who was watching the testimony through the glass of the interrogation room, felt his legs buckle. The accident that had taken his wife's life had not been accidental. Marcus had orchestrated everything to silence the only person who could expose his crimes. Meanwhile, at the mansion, Lily was beginning to show signs of significant emotional improvement. The constant presence of Evelyn and the stable environment Arthur provided were helping her overcome the traumas of abandonment, but she still asked about Mommy Ellie every night before bed. "Uncle Arthur," as she said one morning as she drew at the kitchen table, "is Mommy Ellie ever coming back?" The question he had most feared had finally arrived. Arthur sat down next to her, looking at the drawing of a woman with wings next to a child. After long conversations with Evelyn about how to approach the subject, he had decided on honesty, adapted to the girl's age. "Lily, your Mommy Ellie loved you very much, but she had to go to a place far, far away where she can't come back from." "Like heaven?" "Yes, like heaven. But before she went, she asked me to take care of you." Lily's eyes filled with tears, but she nodded with a maturity that was impressive for her 4 years. "She said you were good. She said that if anything happened, you would protect me." "She said that?" "Uh-huh. When she lived at Auntie Helen's house, she would show your picture and say you were a good man who was sad when she went away." Arthur felt an overwhelming emotion take over his chest. Even while on the run, even while protecting Lily, Eleanor still thought of him with affection. She still believed in his goodness, despite the terrible fight they had. "Do you want to keep living with me?" he asked, holding Lily's small hand. "I do, but can I still love Mommy Ellie, even if I live with you?" "Of course you can. She will always live right here," he said, touching Lily's chest over her heart. That same week, Clara brought news about Beatrice Evans, the laundress mentioned in Eleanor's letter. She confirmed everything. She told Arthur during a visit. Lily was indeed found abandoned as a baby. Eleanor didn't kidnap her, she saved her. Does Beatrice remember anything else about Lily's biological parents? Only that the biological mother was very young, looked about 15. She left the child with a note saying she couldn't raise her, but that she loved her very much and hoped someone good would take care of her. "A teenage mother," Arthur murmured, "probably in a vulnerable situation." Beatrice kept the original note. She's willing to testify that Eleanor acted legally in caring for Lily and that you have a legitimate claim to continue raising the girl. 2 weeks later, Arthur made the most important decision of his life. He sought out a lawyer specializing in adoption and began the legal process to become Lily's official father. The first hearing would be in 2 months, enough time to prepare all the necessary documentation. "I'm scared," he confessed to Evelyn during one of the psychological follow-up sessions. What if the judge decides she needs a traditional family? What if they think a 62-year-old single man isn't suitable? "Arthur, you transformed a traumatized child into a happy, secure little girl in just 2 months. Any sensible judge will see that Lily has found exactly the family she needed." During this period, Lily continued to develop remarkably. Her nightmares decreased drastically. She began to play with other children at the park, and she developed the habit of helping Arthur with household chores, always eager to feel useful and loved. "Daddy Arthur," she said one Sunday, using the term he had so longed to hear for the first time, "can I plant a tree in the garden?" "What kind of tree would you like?" "A golden trumpet tree, like the one at the house where I lived, with Mommy Ellie." That same afternoon, they went to the local nursery and chose a small golden trumpet sapling. Lily insisted on planting it herself, getting her small hands dirty with soil as she explained to the tree that it should grow up beautiful and strong. "When it blooms, I'll draw a picture of the flowers for Mommy Ellie," she said, watering the sapling with excessive care. "It will take a few years for it to bloom," Arthur explained. "That's okay. I'll wait." The night before the adoption hearing, Arthur found Lily standing by her bedroom window, looking at the garden where the small sapling was growing. "Are you scared about tomorrow?" he asked. "A little bit," she admitted. "What if they say I can't stay with you?" "They won't say that. But if they do, we'll fight, because you are my daughter of the heart, and families of the heart never separate." Mommy Ellie used to say that too. That love from the heart is stronger than love from blood. She was right. Lily turned and hugged Arthur tightly. "Daddy Arthur, I love you so much." "I love you too, my daughter." The next morning, wearing her best dress, a light blue one Arthur had bought especially for the occasion, Lily walked hand in hand with him toward the courthouse. Clara and Robert Miles accompanied them, ready to testify about the positive transformation they had witnessed. What none of them expected was to find an unknown woman waiting at the entrance of the building, holding a folder of documents and watching Lily with an intense, disturbed expression. The woman at the courthouse entrance appeared to be about 35, with brown hair tied back in a nervous ponytail and simple but clean clothes. Her eyes were fixed on Lily with an intensity that made Arthur instinctively pull the girl closer to him. "Mr. Sterling?" she said, approaching with hesitant steps. "My name is Lucy Stevens. I need to speak with you before the hearing." "About what?" Clara asked, positioning herself protectively beside Arthur. "About Lily," Lucy replied, her voice trembling slightly. I am her mother." The silence that followed was deafening. Lily hid behind Arthur's legs, not fully understanding the situation but feeling the tension in the air. Clara immediately took a defensive stance, while Evelyn knelt beside Lily to comfort her. "That's impossible," Arthur said, his voice coming out harsher than he intended. "Lily was abandoned as a baby. The mother never came back." "I know," Lucy replied, tears starting to stream down her face. "Because I was the one who left her. I was 15, alone, with no family, no money. I thought I was doing what was best for her." Clara opened the folder she was carrying and pulled out some papers. "Do you have proof of this?" Lucy opened her own folder and showed documents that made Arthur's heart sink. Lily's birth certificate, with her listed as the mother, DNA tests secretly performed using hair strands collected from the house where Lily had lived with Rose, and medical documents proving she had given birth to a girl on the corresponding date. "How did you find us?" Clara asked, examining the papers with a grim expression. "I read about the lawyer Marcus Thorne's case in the newspaper. When I saw Lily's picture, I knew immediately she was my daughter. I spent weeks investigating until I found out about the adoption proceedings." Lily tugged on Arthur's shirt. "Daddy Arthur, who is this lady?" The innocent question broke everyone's heart. Arthur knelt in front of Lily, trying to find the right words for an impossible situation. She says she knew you when you were a baby," he managed to say. "Like Mommy Ellie?" "No, Lily, different from Mommy Ellie." Lucy took a step forward, but Evelyn stopped her with a firm gesture. "It's not appropriate to pressure the child right now," the psychologist said. "She is clearly confused and scared." "I just want my daughter back," Lucy said, her voice breaking. "I've spent 5 years preparing for this moment. I finished my studies, got a stable job. I have a small but adequate house. I can take care of her now." 5 years, Arthur exploded, standing up. "You abandoned a child for 5 years, and now you show up wanting her back? Do you know what she's been through? Do you know the trauma she suffered?" "I know I made mistakes," Lucy admitted, wiping her eyes. "But I was a scared teenager. Now I'm a responsible adult woman." "And Lily is a child who has finally found stability and love," Clara retorted. "You can't just show up and destroy that." At that moment, the hearing was called. Judge Wallace, a man in his 60s with a reputation for being thorough but fair, examined all the presented documents with meticulous attention. "This is an extremely complex situation," he said after hearing the initial arguments. "We have a biological mother claiming parental rights after years of absence, and an adoption candidate who has clearly established deep emotional bonds with the child. Lucy presented her case with the help of a lawyer she had hired. She had been a minor when she became pregnant, with no resources or family support, and had made the decision of a conscious surrender, hoping Lily would be adopted by a stable family. She never imagined the child would end up in a cycle of abandonment and trauma. "Your Honor," her lawyer said, "my client has spent years preparing to be in a position to get her daughter back. She now has a steady job as a nursing assistant, her own apartment, and the emotional stability to raise the girl." Arthur, represented by Robert Miles, who had offered to take the case for free after the events with Marcus, argued that Lily had suffered multiple abandonments and had finally found safety and love in his home. "Your Honor," Robert said, "the child spontaneously calls my client Daddy Arthur. She has overcome severe trauma in an environment of unconditional love. Removing her now would be a new form of abandonment." The judge asked to speak with Lily in private, a standard procedure in contested adoption cases. Evelyn accompanied the girl to the judge's chambers, where she sat on a high chair, swinging her legs nervously. "Lily, do you know why you're here today?" the judge asked in a gentle voice. "Daddy Arthur said we're going to sign papers for me to be his real daughter." "And you want to be his daughter?" "I really do. He takes care of me. He makes me cookies. And we planted a tree together in the garden." "And the lady who was outside, do you know her?" Lily shook her head. "I've never seen her. But she was looking at me in a weird way." "If you had to choose between living with her or with your Daddy Arthur, what would you choose?" "With Daddy Arthur," she replied without hesitation. "He won't leave me alone. He promised." When they returned to the courtroom, the judge had made a temporary decision. Lily would stay with Arthur while a more in-depth social investigation was conducted. Lucy would have the right to supervised visits to gradually establish a bond with her daughter. "This is not a final decision," the judge clarified. I need to assess the best interest of the child, considering all the factors involved. Lucy left the courthouse visibly frustrated but not defeated. I'm not giving up on my daughter, she told Arthur before leaving. She's mine by right, and she's mine by love, he replied. In the following days, Lily was visibly disturbed by the situation. She started having nightmares again, refused to play alone in the garden, and constantly asked if Arthur was going to send her away, like other adults had done. "Daddy Arthur," she said one night after waking up crying, "did I do something wrong? Is that why that lady wants to take me?" "You did nothing wrong, my daughter," he said, hugging her. "Sometimes adults make complicated decisions that children don't understand. I don't want to go live with her. I want to stay with you. And I want you to stay with me. We're going to fight for it." The first supervised visit was scheduled for the following week at Evelyn's office. Lucy arrived with gifts, dolls, books, clothes, clearly trying to win Lily's affection through material things. The girl's reaction was devastating. She hid behind Arthur, refusing to speak to Lucy, and when the woman tried to get closer, Lily began to cry desperately, screaming, "I want to go home." "She just needs time," Lucy insisted, visibly hurt. "It's normal for her to be scared." It would be normal for her to know her own mother," Evelyn murmured to Clara, observing the evident trauma the situation was causing Lily. After 2 hours of failed attempts at interaction, the visit was ended. Lily was emotionally exhausted, and Arthur took her home where she slept in his arms for the rest of the afternoon. "I can't do this to her," he told Clara that night. "I can't force her to accept a stranger as a mother just because there's a biological link. The judge will evaluate all of this, but Lucy has very strong legal rights as the biological mother." "And Lily? What are her rights to stay with the family she chose?" It was a question with no easy answer, and one that would define the future of a girl who had already suffered too much abandonment for her 4 years of life. The next morning, Arthur received a call that would change everything again. Lucy had disappeared, leaving only a note in her apartment. The note Lucy left was brief, but filled with a deep sadness that touched even those who saw her as a threat to Lily's happiness. "After seeing how my daughter reacted to my presence, I understood that true love sometimes means letting go. Lily is happy and safe with Mr. Sterling in a way I could never provide right now. I don't want to be another source of trauma in her life. Please, take good care of her. She deserves all the happiness in the world. Lucy." Clara found Lucy's apartment completely empty, with no trace of where she had gone. Neighbors said they saw her leave during the night with a single suitcase, seemingly crying. "It's strange," Clara commented to Arthur. "She fought so hard to find Lily, presented all those documents, hired a lawyer, and now she just gives up." "Maybe she realized what we already knew," Arthur replied, "that being a biological mother doesn't automatically mean you're the best option for a child. Or maybe there's something more. People don't usually abandon legal battles so easily, especially when they involve their children." Meanwhile, Lily seemed to feel an instinctive relief at Lucy's disappearance. She started playing in the garden again, her nightmares subsided, and she resumed her favorite activities with renewed enthusiasm. "Did the sad lady go away?" she asked Arthur during breakfast. "She did, my daughter. She wasn't mean. She was just very sad," Lily observed with the peculiar wisdom of children. "But I didn't want to leave you, and you won't have to. Never again." A week later, Judge Wallace called a new hearing to discuss the developments in the case. With Lucy's disappearance and her implicit renunciation of parental rights, the path to Lily's adoption by Arthur seemed clear. "Mr. Sterling," the judge said during the hearing, "given the voluntary abandonment by the biological mother and the clear evidence that the minor is well adjusted in your home, I'm inclined to approve the adoption process. However, there is one issue that needs to be clarified. Arthur's heart raced. What issue, Your Honor? During the social investigation, we discovered that there is a maternal aunt of Lily's, Lucy Stevens' sister, who may also have rights to the child. Arthur's blood ran cold. Another biological relative meant another possible custody dispute. Where is this aunt? Apparently living in Chicago. She has already been notified of the proceedings and has a deadline to respond. Clara scribbled furiously in her notepad. Another complication in a case that seemed finally resolved. And if she wants custody of Lily, Robert Miles asked, we will have to evaluate it. The law prioritizes keeping children within the biological family whenever possible. 2 days later, the answer came in the form of a phone call that would completely change everyone's perspective on the case. Lily's aunt, Maria Stevens, called Robert Miles directly. Mr. Miles, my name is Maria Stevens. I'm Lucy's sister. I'm calling about my niece, Lily. Ah, do you intend to claim custody of her? The lawyer asked, preparing for another legal battle. No, in fact, I'm calling to fully support the adoption by Mr. Sterling. The answer took Robert by surprise. What do you mean? Sir, my sister Lucy has serious problems that she hid from the court. She suffers from severe bipolar disorder and has had several psychiatric hospitalizations. The sudden disappearance is typical of her crisis episodes. Robert took notes quickly. Can you prove this? I have medical documents, a history of hospitalizations, and most importantly, I have the real reason why she abandoned Lily as a baby. What reason? She had a severe psychotic episode after giving birth. She tried to harm the child, believing the baby was possessed by demons. I was there when it happened. That's why she decided to give Lily up, not for lack of resources, but for fear of hurting her during another crisis. The revelation completely changed the narrative Lucy had presented in court. It hadn't been a conscious decision by a scared teenager, but a protective measure taken during a psychiatric episode. Why didn't you say this before? Because I didn't know Lucy had reappeared until I read about the case in the newspapers. When I saw she was trying to get Lily back, I became desperate. My sister is not fit to care for a child, especially not in a stable way. Would you be willing to travel to Aspen to testify? I'm already on my way. I'll arrive tomorrow morning. Maria Stevens arrived in Aspen the next morning, carrying a bulky folder with medical documents that painted a worrying picture of Lucy's mental health. There were years of psychiatric treatment, controlled medications, and episodes of erratic behavior. Lucy is a good person deep down, Maria explained to Arthur during a conversation in Robert's office, but her illness makes her unpredictable. In periods of stability, she can seem completely normal, but in crises, what happens in crises? Clara asked. Delusions, hallucinations, aggressive behavior. She's called me several times in the middle of the night saying she was being chased by people who wanted to steal her organs. Once, she disappeared for 2 weeks and was found in another city living on the street. Arthur processed the information with mixed feelings. On one hand, he felt relief knowing that Lily would be safe with him. On the other, he felt pity for Lucy, a woman who clearly loved her daughter, but was unable to care for her. Maria, he asked, where do you think Lucy is now? Probably somewhere isolated, going through a depressive phase after the manic episode that brought her here. It's her pattern, periods of excessive energy followed by deep depression. Could she be in danger? She could. During her depressive phases, she has tried to harm herself a few times. Clara offered to try to locate Lucy, not to bring her back into the adoption process, but to ensure she received the necessary medical treatment. I found records of a woman matching her description at a cheap lodge in Vale, Clara reported 2 days later. She's registered under a false name, but the physical description matches. How is she? Maria asked, concerned. According to the receptionist, she stays in her room all day, barely eats, and sometimes they hear her crying. Maria sighed. It's the depressive phase. I need to go get her and take her back for treatment in Chicago. You'll do that even after she tried to take Lily from me? Arthur asked. She's my sister, Mr. Sterling, and deep down she just wanted to be a mother. It's the illness that prevents her from succeeding. Maria left for Vale that same afternoon, taking medications and Lucy's medical documents with her. She found her sister exactly as Clara had described, locked in a small, dirty room, having not eaten properly for days. "Lucy, it's me, Maria. I came to get you. I ruined everything," Lucy murmured without looking up. "My daughter hates me. She cried when she saw me. She doesn't hate you. She just doesn't know you, and that's not your fault." "Yes, it is. I'm a terrible mother. I don't deserve to have a daughter." Maria spent 3 days caring for Lucy at the lodge, administering medication and gradually bringing her back to reality. When she finally managed to convince her to return to Chicago, Lucy made a request that surprised everyone. "I want to write a letter to Mr. Sterling," she said, "a real letter explaining everything." The letter arrived a week later, handwritten on plain paper, but with words that deeply touched Arthur's heart. "Mr. Sterling, I know I caused a lot of suffering for you and for Lily with my appearance. Now, with proper medication and a clearer mind, I understand that I acted wrongly by trying to get my daughter back without considering what was best for her. When I abandoned her as a baby, I was going through a severe crisis. I was afraid of hurting her. For all these years, I dreamed of getting her back, but I never considered that she would have formed bonds with other people. Seeing how she reacted to your presence versus how she reacted to mine, it's clear who her real father is. Please, officially adopt her and give her the stable family I could never be. I only ask for one thing. When she is older and asks about me, tell her that I loved her enough to let her go. That I loved her enough to choose her happiness over my selfish desire to be a mother. Thank you for saving my daughter. Lucy." With this letter as final evidence of Lucy's consent for the adoption, and with Maria's testimony about her sister's inability to care for children, the legal process finally came to an end. But there was still one last surprise waiting for Arthur and Lily, a discovery that would connect all the loose threads of the story in a way no one could have imagined. The final discovery came in a completely unexpected way, during a routine visit from Beatrice Evans, the laundress from the Eagle River who had testified about Eleanor's past. She had traveled to Aspen specifically to meet Lily and deliver something she had kept for years. "Mr. Sterling," Beatrice said, sitting in the mansion's living room while watching Lily play in the garden, "there's something I never told anyone about Eleanor and the girl." "What is it, Mrs. Evans?" Arthur asked, pouring coffee for the elderly woman. "When Eleanor arrived in our village with Lily, she wasn't alone. There was another person with her, a young, very sick girl who claimed to be the child's real mother." Arthur almost dropped his cup. "What do you mean?" "The girl was about 15, very weak, feverish. Eleanor said she had found her passed out on the road with the child crying beside her. The young woman had seizures during the first night, said disconnected things. Clara, who had arrived for another meeting about the adoption process, leaned forward. What kind of things? She talked about voices in her head, about demons who wanted to steal her daughter. Eleanor and I stayed up all night caring for her, trying to bring down the fever. In the description, perfectly matched the symptoms of psychiatric disorder that Maria had described about Lucy. But if Beatrice was telling the truth, it meant that Eleanor had personally met Lily's biological mother. "What happened to this girl?" Arthur asked. The next morning she was calmer. Eleanor talked to her for hours. The girl said she couldn't take care of her daughter, that she was afraid of hurting her during her crises. She asked Eleanor to promise that she would care for the child as if she were her own. And Eleanor agreed, more than agreed. She held the girl's hands and swore to God that Lily would be loved and protected. It was one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen, two mothers sharing their love for the same child. Beatrice opened an old bag she had brought. The girl left this with Eleanor before she left. She said to keep it in case Lily ever wanted to know her true story. It was a small wooden box, simple but well cared for. Inside were photographs of Lucy as a teenager, some letters she had written to Lily during her hospitalizations, and a silver chain with a heart-shaped pendant. "Lucy wrote letters to Lily all these years?" Clara asked, flipping through the papers carefully. According to Eleanor, the girl would show up in the village from time to time, always very sick, but always bringing something for her daughter. She never stayed long, said she didn't want to contaminate the child with her madness. One of the letters, dated 2 years ago, caught Arthur's attention. "My little Lily, today I had a good day. The doctors say my medication is working. I dreamed you were playing in a big garden, laughing a lot. I hope you are happy where you are. Mommy Eleanor promises to tell me how you are whenever I see her. You are lucky to have such a special second mother. One day, when I am completely cured, maybe we can meet. Until then, know that I love you more than anything. Your first mother, Lucy." Other letters revealed the progression of Lucy's illness and her knowledge of Lily's life through Eleanor's accounts. It was clear that, although she couldn't care for her daughter, she had never lost her maternal love. "Beatrice," Arthur said, processing all this information, "did Eleanor know I was married to her when she took on Lily's care?" "She did. The girl, Lucy, had some old documents, a birth certificate, a work ID. When Eleanor saw the surname Vance, she told Lucy about her marriage to a businessman from Aspen. And yet she didn't contact me. Eleanor was scared, Mr. Sterling. She said you had fought badly, that you only cared about money. She was afraid you wouldn't accept caring for a child that wasn't yours." The irony of the situation hit Arthur with full force. Eleanor had spent years caring for Lily, suffering threats from Marcus, living in hiding, all because she was afraid he would reject the girl, when in reality, meeting Lily had become the most important thing in his life. "There's one more thing," Beatrice said, taking a sealed envelope from the box. "Eleanor gave me this shortly before she left the village. She said to deliver it to you if you ever met again." With trembling hands, Arthur opened the envelope. It was a letter from Eleanor dated just 3 months before her departure. "My dearest Arthur, if you are reading this, it means Beatrice managed to find you and that perhaps you have met our Lily. Yes, ours, because even though she is not our daughter by blood, she has become our daughter by heart. I know our fight was terrible. You saw me as a stubborn woman who chose strangers over her own husband. But I couldn't explain at the time that I wasn't just defending the ranch workers. I was defending the kind of person I wanted to be for Lily. A child was entrusted to me by a desperate mother. How could I teach this child about compassion and justice if I myself was not capable of fighting for the most vulnerable? I'm afraid to seek you out, Arthur. I'm afraid you will see Lily as a burden, as a complication in our lives. She has already suffered too much abandonment. I cannot risk that happening again. But if you ever meet her, I hope you see what I see, an extraordinary child full of love to give who just needs someone to believe in her. Forgive me for not trusting you. Forgive me for not giving you the chance to meet the daughter we always wanted to have. With all my eternal love, Eleanor." Arthur couldn't hold back the tears. In that moment, he completely understood the tragedy of his situation. He and Eleanor had lost precious years together because of fear, pride, and lack of communication. But ironically, it was through Lily that he rediscovered the capacity to love unconditionally. "Beatrice," he said, wiping his eyes, Did Eleanor mention anything about where she was going when she left the village? She said she was going to try to solve the problems with that lawyer once and for all, that she couldn't stand living in hiding anymore, in fear. She wanted Lily to have a normal life. She went to confront Marcus alone, Clara murmured. She knew it was dangerous, but she did it to protect Lily. At that moment, Lily ran into the room, holding a flower she had picked in the garden. Seeing the adults with serious expressions and papers scattered on the table, she grew concerned. "Daddy Arthur, why are you crying?" she asked, climbing into his lap. "Sometimes adults cry from sadness, but sometimes they cry from joy," he explained, hugging her. "I'm crying because I found out something very beautiful about you and Mommy Ellie." "What thing?" Arthur looked at Beatrice, who nodded encouragingly. It was time for Lily to know at least part of her true story. "Mommy Ellie loved you so much that she made very important promises to take care of you, and she kept all those promises, even when it was very difficult." "What kind of promises?" Promises that you would always be loved, always be safe, and always have a family." Lily thought for a moment. "And she kept them even when she went to heaven." "Yes, because she brought me to you." "How?" "That's a long story, which I'll tell you when you're older. But for now, the important thing is to know that many people have loved you since you were born." "How many people?" "Your first mommy who gave you life, Mommy Ellie who took care of you, Grandma Rose who protected you, and me who will now be your daddy forever." Lily smiled, seemingly satisfied with this explanation. "I have a big family then." "A very big one," Arthur confirmed, "and full of love." That night, after Lily fell asleep, Arthur carefully stored all the letters, photographs, and personal items in the wooden box. One day, when Lily was a teenager, he would give her all of it so she could fully know her story. But for now, it was enough to know that she was loved, safe, and finally home. The final adoption hearing was scheduled for the following week, and this time nothing could stop them from officially becoming father and daughter. The week leading up to the final adoption hearing brought a tranquility that Arthur hadn't felt in months. Lily was visibly happier and more secure, played naturally in the garden, and had fully resumed her routine of colorful drawings, now always including smiling figures of a united family. "Daddy Arthur," she said one morning, while watering the small golden trumpet sapling they had planted together, "when the tree grows, I'm going to draw all its flowers." "It will take a few years for it to bloom," he reminded her, observing the dedication with which she cared for the plant. "That's okay. I have time. I'm going to stay here with you until I get old." The simplicity of this statement deeply touched Arthur's heart. Lily had finally found the emotional security she so desperately needed, the certainty that she would not be abandoned again. That afternoon, Evelyn made her last visit as the psychologist responsible for monitoring the adoption process. After observing Lily play and talking with her for an hour, she met with Arthur for the final report. "Her transformation is extraordinary," Evelyn said, making notes on her clipboard. "When I met her 3 months ago, she was a traumatized child with a constant fear of abandonment, frequent nightmares, and difficulty forming bonds. Today, I see a secure, affectionate girl with emotional development completely within the normal range." "And psychologically, are there any permanent scars from the traumas she experienced?" "There will always be marks, Arthur. Experiences of multiple abandonment leave deep scars, but with consistent love and a stable environment, those scars become just part of her story, not defining who she is. She sometimes still wakes up calling for Mommy Ellie, and that's healthy. It means she hasn't forgotten the people who loved her." Lily has an impressive ability to carry love for multiple parental figures without internal conflict. That's a sign of remarkable emotional maturity for a 4-year-old. The day before the hearing, something unexpected happened. Maria Stevens called from Chicago with news about Lucy that once again changed everyone's perspective on the situation. "Mr. Sterling," Maria said, her voice filled with emotion, "Lucy is going through the best period of stability she's had in years. The doctors have adjusted her medication, she's in regular therapy, and most importantly, she's volunteering at a shelter for abandoned children." "That's wonderful for her," Arthur replied sincerely. "She asked me to make a request to you. She doesn't want to interfere with the adoption or Lily's life, but she would like to be able to send a little letter to her daughter once a year on her birthday, just to know how she's growing up." Arthur considered the request carefully. "As long as it doesn't interfere with Lily's emotional stability, I think we can consider that when she's older. Eh?" Lucy also said something else that might interest you. She vaguely remembers a conversation she had with Eleanor in the fishing village years ago. Eleanor mentioned that her husband was a good man, but very hurt by life. She said that if one day something happened to her, she would want her husband to meet Lily. Eleanor really said that? According to Lucy, yes. She always believed you would be a wonderful father to Lily, but was afraid her own actions had destroyed that possibility. After hanging up, Arthur spent a long time watching Lily play in the garden. Somehow, even in separation and fear, Eleanor had planted the seeds for him and the girl to find each other. It was as if she had orchestrated everything from the beginning. On the morning of the final hearing, Lily woke up earlier than usual. She had chosen her prettiest dress, the light blue one with little white flowers, and asked Arthur to braid her hair in 2 plaits. "Are we signing the papers today for me to be your real daughter?" she asked as he carefully brushed her hair. "Yes, my princess. Today you will officially become Lily Sterling." "Lily Sterling," she repeated, testing the sound. "I like that name, and I like the girl who will carry it." The courthouse was busy that morning, but for Arthur and Lily, nothing else existed beyond the room where the final hearing would take place. Clara and Robert accompanied them, as did Evelyn, who had offered to be present in case Lily needed emotional support. Judge Wallace entered the room with a solemn expression, but there was something warm in his eyes when he looked at Lily, who was sitting next to Arthur, swinging her legs nervously. "Mr. Sterling," the judge said, "after reviewing all the documents, testimonies, and social reports, and considering the best interest of the minor, Lily, this court has granted the adoption request." Arthur felt his heart pound. Finally, after months of uncertainty, fear, and legal battles, Lily would officially be his daughter. "As of this date," the judge continued, "the minor, Lily, will be known as Lily Sterling, with all the rights and duties of a legitimate daughter of the petitioner, Arthur Sterling." "Am I your real daughter now?" Lily whispered to Arthur. "Now you are my daughter forever," he replied, hugging her tightly. The judge smiled, a rare gesture during official proceedings. "Lily, do you understand what happened here today?" "I do, Mr. Judge. Now Daddy Arthur is my real daddy, not just my heart daddy." "And are you happy about that?" "Very happy. Now I can call him Daddy without being afraid that someone will come to take me away." After all the documents were signed and the legal procedures were completed, the group went for a celebratory lunch at a special restaurant Arthur had reserved. Lily was radiant, showing everyone present the official document that proved she was now a Sterling. "Do you know what this means?" said Robert, toasting with orange juice. "It means you've officially inherited your father's stubbornness." "Hey," Arthur protested, laughing. "My daughter only inherited my best qualities." "Like modesty," Clara teased, making everyone laugh. During lunch, Lily made a statement that moved everyone present. "Now I have a real big family. Daddy Arthur, Aunt Clara, Aunt Evelyn, Uncle Robert. And in heaven, I have Mommy Ellie and my first mommy." "A very big one," Evelyn confirmed, discreetly wiping her eyes. In the afternoon, back at the mansion, father and daughter planted a second sapling in the garden, this time a white rose bush that Lily chose in honor of Eleanor. "When the flowers are born, I'll tell them about Mommy Ellie," she said, gently stroking the plant's leaves. That night, as he put Lily to bed, Arthur noticed she had placed the cloth doll Eleanor had left next to the adoption document on her bedside table. "Why did you put them together?" he asked. "Because the doll is from my life before, and the paper is from my life now. I want them to be together, to remember that everything is part of the same story." The wisdom of this 4-year-old continued to surprise him every day. "Daddy?" she said sleepily as he was leaving the room. "Yes, my daughter. Thank you for finding me at that gas station. Thank you for being brave enough to look for me." Mommy Ellie said I was brave. She said that when you need something very important, courage just appears. She was right. "Daddy?" "Yes. Now that I'm your official daughter, can I ask you for something?" "You can ask for anything. When I grow up, I want to help other children like me, children who are looking for a family." Arthur went back to the bed and kissed his daughter's forehead. "When you grow up, we'll help them together." "Promise?" "I promise." As Lily fell asleep with a smile on her face, Arthur remained for a few minutes watching her. In just 5 months, this little girl had completely changed his life, taught him about the true meaning of unconditional love, and shown him that family was not defined by blood, but by choice and dedication. But their journey was not yet complete. There was one last discovery waiting, one that would reveal that the paths that led them to each other were not a coincidence, but part of a larger plan that not even they could have imagined. 6 months after the official adoption, Arthur and Lily had established a perfect family routine. The girl attended a private school where she quickly became beloved by teachers and classmates, always drawing happy families during art class and proudly telling everyone she had the best daddy in the world. It was during one of these normal school mornings that the final discovery arrived, in a way no one could have foreseen. The school principal, Mrs. Thompson, called Arthur with urgency in her voice. "Mr. Sterling, I need you to come pick up Lily immediately. It's nothing serious with her, but a situation has arisen that requires your presence." "What happened?" Arthur asked, already grabbing his car keys. "A woman showed up here claiming to be a relative of Lily's. She's very agitated, insists on talking to the girl, but we don't want to allow it without your authorization." Arthur's heart froze. Had Lucy returned? Or had some other unknown relative emerged to complicate their lives again? When he arrived at the school, he found a scene that left him completely perplexed. In the principal's office, an elegantly dressed woman of about 40 was crying as she held an old photograph. She had light brown hair, green eyes, and something about her face vaguely resembled Eleanor. "Mr. Sterling," the principal said, "this is Emily Grant. She claims to be your late wife's cousin." Emily stood up immediately, holding the photograph out to Arthur. "Mr. Sterling, I know this must seem crazy, but when I saw Lily's picture in the newspaper during the adoption process, I knew immediately who she was." "What do you mean?" "This is a photo of my daughter Chloe when she was Lily's age. They are practically identical." Arthur looked at the photograph and almost fell out of his chair. The resemblance was striking, not just physically, but even the expression, the way she smiled, the large, expressive eyes. It was as if he were looking at Lily in an old photo. "This still doesn't explain why you're here," he said, trying to stay calm. "Because Chloe is my adopted daughter, and I have reason to believe that she and Lily are biological sisters." The silence in the room was absolute. Emily continued, her words tumbling out with emotion. "Chloe was found abandoned in Vale 6 years ago when she was about 2. The circumstances were very similar to Lily's, a child left without documents, with only a small hospital identification bracelet." Arthur sat down heavily. "And you think they have the same mother?" I'm almost certain Chloe always talked about a little sister who was left behind. When she was younger, she constantly drew two girls playing together. The psychologist said it could be her imagination, but now, where is Chloe now? In the car with my husband. We didn't want to bring her in until we were sure, but Mr. Sterling, if they really are sisters... Arthur thought quickly. Lily had never mentioned memories of a sister, but considering her age when she was separated from her original family, it was possible the memories were blocked. Emily, where do you live? In Denver. I'm a university professor. My husband is a doctor. We adopted Chloe 4 years ago after 2 years in foster care. And why did you never look for her biological family before? We tried, but all the records had been lost or destroyed. It was only when I saw Lily's photo in the newspaper, along with the story about Lucy Stevens, that the pieces fit together. At that moment, Lily appeared at the office door, accompanied by her teacher. Seeing Arthur's face, she immediately sensed something was wrong. "Daddy, is everything okay?" "It is, my daughter. Come here." Lily approached cautiously, looking curiously at Emily. When she saw the photograph the woman was holding, her eyes widened. "Daddy, that girl looks like me." "She does," Arthur agreed. "Lily, this lady's name is Emily. She takes care of a girl named Chloe who looks a lot like you." "Is she here?" Emily looked to Arthur for permission. He nodded hesitantly. "She's in the car. Would you like to meet her?" Lily looked at Arthur, who was clearly torn between protecting his daughter from another potential disappointment and allowing her to meet someone who could be real family. "Can I, Daddy?" Lily asked. "I've never met another kid who looks like me." "All right, but slowly, no pressure." They left the school together, and Arthur saw a tall, dark-haired man waiting by a car, talking quietly to a brown-haired girl. When Chloe turned around, the impact was immediate. The two girls looked at each other in silence for a long moment. Chloe was visibly older, 6 years old, but the physical resemblance was undeniable. More than that, there was something in their mutual recognition that went beyond appearance. "Hi," Chloe said shyly. "Are you Lily?" "I am. Are you Chloe?" "I am." "You look like me." "You look like me too." Emily and her husband, who introduced himself as Dr. Richard Grant, watched the interaction with restrained emotion. Arthur stayed close to Lily, ready to intervene if she showed any discomfort. "Chloe," Lily said suddenly, "did you ever live in a house with a big tree? A tree with yellow flowers?" Chloe's eyes lit up. "I did, and there was a lady who made sweet bread. Were you there too?" "I was, but I was little. I remember you," Chloe exclaimed, her initial reserve vanishing. "You used to cry a lot, and I would sing to you to make you stop." Lily took a few steps toward Chloe. "Did you sing the little bird song?" "I did. Want to hear it?" Chloe began to hum a simple melody, and to everyone's amazement, Lily joined in. It was the same song Eleanor used to sing, the same one Lily hummed when she was sad. "My God," Emily murmured to her husband. "They really do remember each other." Dr. Richard approached Arthur. "Mr. Sterling, I know this must be shocking. We didn't come here to dispute custody of Lily or cause problems. We just wanted to confirm our suspicions, and if they were true, allow the girls to meet. Did you do a DNA test with Chloe?" "We did when we adopted her. We can do a comparative test with Lily, if you agree." Arthur watched the two girls, who were now sitting on the ground, showing each other the drawings Lily had made at school. It was extraordinary how quickly they had established a connection. "Daddy," Lily said, running to him, "Chloe is my sister." "How do you know?" "Because I remember her. She took care of me when I was a baby. She taught me the little bird song." Chloe approached as well. "Aunt Emily, can I invite Lily to play at our house?" The situation was surreal, but at the same time, there was something deeply right about this meeting. two sisters who had been separated as babies, each finding loving families, but reconnecting through a seemingly impossible coincidence. "Emily," Arthur said after a long pause, "if they really are sisters, what do you propose?" "That they get to know each other gradually. Regular visits, holidays together, a relationship that allows them to be sisters without interfering with the families each has built. And if the DNA test confirms it, then our children will have gained not just sisters, but extended families. Richard and I always wanted Chloe to know her origins. If Lily is really her sister, it would be a priceless gift." 2 weeks later, the DNA test results arrived by email. Dr. Richard called Arthur with the confirmation they all already expected in their hearts. Chloe and Lily were biological sisters, daughters of the same mother, Lucy Stevens. 97.8% compatibility, the doctor reported. No shadow of a doubt. That night, Arthur sat down with Lily to officially explain what they had discovered. "My daughter, remember Chloe, the girl we met at school? I remember. She's my new friend. Actually, she's more than a friend. Chloe is your real sister. You were born from the same mother, but you were separated when you were very little." Lily processed the information with the seriousness she always showed for important matters. "So now I have a sister?" "You do. And is she going to live here?" "No. She has a family that loves her, just like you have me. But you can visit each other, play together, be sisters, even while living in different houses." "Like you and Uncle Robert?" Arthur laughed. "Something like that." "Daddy?" "Yes. Does this mean our family just got even bigger?" "Much bigger, my princess." "I like big families," Lily said, hugging him. "More people to love." Destinies. At that moment, Arthur understood that the journey that had begun at a gas station with a lost girl had turned into something much larger than a simple adoption. It was about reconnection, about chosen family, about the power of love to transcend blood and circumstances. And there was still one last revelation waiting, one that would show that not even this incredible discovery was the end of the story. A year had passed since Lily and Chloe's reunion, and the two sisters had developed an extraordinary bond that surpassed the physical distance between Aspen and Denver. They spent holidays together alternately, video chatted every week, and each visit revealed new shared memories of their early childhood. It was during one of these visits, when Chloe was spending a week at Arthur's mansion, that the final and most surprising discovery of the entire story came to light. The two girls were playing in the garden when Chloe made an observation that would change everything once more. "Lily, have you noticed that your golden trumpet tree looks just like the one at the house Aunt Emily took me to last month?" "What house?" Lily asked, stopping her watering of the flowers. "A really pretty house she went to visit. The lady who lives there knew our first mommy, the one who left us when we were babies." Arthur, who was nearby tidying some garden tools, felt his heart race. "Chloe, who was this lady?" "A very nice old lady named Mrs. Beatrice. She lives in a house near a river and does laundry for the people in town." "Beatrice Evans?" Arthur murmured, immediately recognizing the name. "Yes. Do you know her too, Uncle Arthur?" Arthur immediately called Emily, who confirmed the information with enthusiasm. "Yes, I took Chloe to meet Beatrice last month. She told me she had important information about the girl's past, things she had never told anyone." "What kind of information?" "She prefers to talk in person. She said it's something that will close the circle of the girl's story. Can we go there this weekend?" 2 days later, 2 cars followed the road leading to the fishing village on the Eagle River. Arthur drove with Lily humming in the back seat, while Emily and Richard followed close behind with Chloe. The two sisters were eager to see Beatrice again, especially Lily, who had developed a special affection for the woman who had kept so many secrets about her history. Beatrice's house was tidier than last time, with new flowers in the garden and a table set on the porch with local pastries. She waited for them with a warm smile, but there was something solemn in her expression that suggested the day's revelations would be profound. "Girls," she said, hugging Chloe and Lily, "it's so good to see you together. It's how it should have been from the beginning." After settling the children with toys on the porch, the adults gathered in Beatrice's simple living room, where she had prepared a presentation that would forever change their understanding of the sisters' story. "Mr. Sterling, Mrs. Grant," Beatrice began. "5 years ago, when you came here looking for information about Eleanor, I only told part of the truth. There were things that were not yet appropriate to be revealed, but now, seeing the girls reunited and happy, the time has come to tell everything." "What didn't you tell us?" Emily asked. "The truth about why Lucy separated her 2 daughters. Arthur leaned forward. "What do you mean, separated?" "Lucy didn't abandon the girls because she couldn't care for them. She separated them intentionally, placing them in different places as a way to protect them." Beatrice stood up and brought an old box that was stored in a cabinet. Inside were documents, photographs, and letters she had preserved for years. "Lucy became pregnant with twins when she was 15, she explained, showing an old ultrasound. "The children's father was the son of a very influential and powerful family in the region who didn't want a scandal." "And what happened?" "When Lucy refused to terminate the pregnancy, the boy's family began to threaten her. They said that if she had the children, they would suffer accidents to protect the family's reputation." Emily covered her mouth in horror. "So Lucy separated the girls to protect them?" "Exactly. She had a very clever plan, even for being so young. She left Chloe first in Vale, with documents indicating she was an only child. 2 years later, when she thought it was safe, she left Lily in a different location, also with no traces that could connect them." "But why didn't you tell us this before?" Arthur asked. "Because the family that threatened Lucy was still dangerous. The patriarch only died last year, and only now can I speak without risk." Beatrice showed them a letter that Lucy had written years ago, addressed to her daughters, explaining her decisions. "My beloved girls, if you ever read this, I want you to know that separating you was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, but also the most important. You were raised in safety, far from evil people who wanted to hurt you. Each of you had families who loved you as I have always loved you. If you managed to find each other, it means my plan worked, and that you can now be together without danger." "There was one more element to Lucy's plan," Beatrice continued. "She specifically sought out Eleanor because she knew she was married to a good, influential man. Lucy hoped that, if something happened to her, Eleanor would eventually take Lily back to her husband." "Lucy planned for Lily to reach me?" Arthur asked, incredulous. "Not exactly planned, but she created possibilities. She knew Eleanor spoke of you with affection, even after the separation. She knew you had the resources and influence to protect Lily, if necessary." Chloe and Lily, who had approached the door during the conversation, entered the room with curious expressions. "Aunt Beatrice," Chloe said, "are you talking about our first mommy?" "I am, my dear. I'm telling your parents how she was very brave and smart to protect you." "Did she love us?" Lily asked. "She loved you more than anything in the world. So much so that she made the greatest sacrifice a mother can make, to let her daughters go so they could be safe." That afternoon, while the girls played in Beatrice's yard, the adults processed all the revelations. Lucy's story had taken on a heroic dimension none of them had imagined. She wasn't a scared teenager who had abandoned her daughters, but a young mother who had orchestrated a complex plan to save their lives. "She should know that the girls have found each other," Emily said. "She should," Arthur agreed, Beatrice, are you in contact with Lucy? I am. She calls me from time to see if there's any news about the girls. The last time we spoke, 2 months ago, she was doing well, working as a nurse at a psychiatric hospital in Chicago. Do you think she would like to meet the families who adopted her daughters? I'm sure she would, but with no pressure, no expectations. Just to know that her plan worked and that the girls are happy. 3 weeks later, a carefully planned meeting took place in the same garden of Beatrice's house. Lucy arrived accompanied by Maria, visibly nervous but stable, her eyes immediately searching for the 2 daughters playing under the mango tree. They've grown so much, she murmured, tears streaming down her face. And they're so happy. They are, Arthur confirmed, thanks to your sacrifice. Chloe was the first to approach. Are you our first mommy? I am, Lucy replied, kneeling to be at the girl's level. Thank you for protecting us, Chloe said, with the maturity of her 7 years. Lily approached as well. Aunt Beatrice said you were very brave. You were the brave ones, and you found wonderful families. The meeting lasted 2 hours, enough time for Lucy to meet Emily, Richard, and personally confirm that her daughters were being raised with love and care. I don't want to interfere in the lives you've built, she told the adoptive parents. I just wanted to make sure my plan had worked. It worked perfectly, Emily said, and now our families are connected forever. 6 months later, on Lily's 6th birthday, the entire extended family gathered in the garden of Arthur's mansion. Lucy and Maria came from Chicago. Emily and Richard brought Chloe, Clara and Robert attended as always, and even Evelyn was present. The golden trumpet tree that Lily had planted 2 years earlier was blooming for the first time, its golden flowers creating a magical canopy over the party. Daddy, Lily said, looking at the flowers, the tree bloomed. It did, Arthur agreed, hugging his daughter. Does this mean I can draw the flowers for Mommy Ellie now, like I promised? You can. As Lily and Chloe ran through the garden chasing butterflies among the guests, Arthur looked around and saw the extraordinary family that had formed. Lucy was chatting animatedly with Emily about the girls, Maria was helping Clara serve the cake, and Robert was entertaining the children with simple magic tricks. It's surreal, isn't it? Evelyn said, approaching him. Who could have imagined that a lost girl at a gas station would connect so many lives? Sometimes I think Eleanor orchestrated all of this from somewhere, Arthur replied, watching Lily proudly show Lucy the family drawing she had made for her birthday, a drawing that included everyone present at the party. That night, after all the guests had gone, Lily sat on Arthur's lap on the porch, watching the stars. Daddy, can I tell you a secret? Of course, my daughter. Sometimes when I'm really happy, I feel like Mommy Ellie is right here smiling at me. I feel that too, Arthur admitted. Do you think she's proud of our big family? I'm sure she is. Daddy? Yes? Thank you for stopping at that gas station. Thank you for listening to me when I said I was looking for my mother. Thank you for being brave enough to look for me, for trusting a stranger. You were never a stranger. From the first day, I felt like you were going to take care of me. As he put Lily to bed, Arthur reflected on the extraordinary journey they had taken together. It had begun with trauma, abandonment and pain, but had transformed into a story of love, family and redemption that surpassed any fairy tale. On Lily's bedside table, there was now not only Eleanor's doll and the adoption document, but also a photo from the birthday party with the entire family gathered and a drawing she had made of the golden trumpet tree's flowers. Good night, my princess, he whispered. Good night, Daddy. I love you to the stars and back. I love you to the stars and back too. And so, the girl who had walked barefoot down a dusty road looking for a mother had found not just a father, but an entire family that loved her unconditionally. The The story that began with tears ended with laughter, and the golden trumpet tree that symbolized hope had finally bloomed, just like the love that united hearts that were destined to meet. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to my channel. I promise to bring you videos every day that will make your life happier. Let me know what you thought of my story by giving it a rating from 0 to 10, and thank you very much.